All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Just as a little precursor before we get started, this event is being recorded, so we will have it for future access. And so we're so excited to welcome our speakers today to talk about the Special Library Association. We have five speakers today. We have Jen Everett from the Divisional Associate Vice President of the American Financial Group. We have Jamie Hullinger, who's the Corporate Librarian at the medical technology company Zimmer Biomet. We have Florida Lopez, who is a Research and Knowledge Resources Project Supervisor at Skadden, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but ARPS, Slate, Meager, and Flom, LLP. We have Julie Smith-Macask, who is a law librarian at Eastman and Smith. And we have Jill Strand, who's the Director of Research and Knowledge Services at Fish and Richardson. So we are going to start by getting to hear from our different speakers, and we do have a slide. And we are going to ask that if you have any questions, please shoot them into the chat, and we will have a Q&A session afterwards. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Julie, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you to you and everyone else who's helped us set up this webinar. We're really happy to be here and to talk to you about the keys of special libraries as well as the Special Libraries Association. I am going to share my screen so we can show the slides. And we tested this before and it was working, so hopefully it still works. Let's see. Make sure you're not seeing my email. Are you guys seeing the keys to special libraries?
Yes.
I bet not. Hang on a second.
Not in
You
presentation,
are?
Julie.
Yeah,
We
but it's
see
not
it,
in
but it's not in
presentation.
presentation.
Okay. From beginning.
There we go.
All right. All right. I think it's sharing the wrong screen. Hang on just a second here. Let me try this again. Share. Screen 3. There we go. That's better. All righty. Sorry, my Zoom, I have 3 screens and my Zoom is on each part is on each one, so it makes life interesting. So I do apologize for the technical confusion, but like I said, we are very happy to be here to talk to you about special libraries. And I'm not sure if you saw the advertisement that we provided, but literally special libraries, people who work in them, people with our skills, they literally work accounting firms to zoos. If you look at the Special Libraries Association directory, you will see people who work from accounting firms and you will see people who walk from zoos. So this is not an exaggeration. So tonight we're going to talk about some of the keys that you make a successful librarian, especially in special libraries, as well as about the Special Libraries Association. Now, first up is going to be Jen. So take it away, Jen.
All right. Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Everett. I manage a group of 6 librarians within an insurance company, and I have been working in special libraries for almost 30 years. But I've been an American Financial Group for the last 18. So that's a quick who I am. But when we sat down, I volunteered to sort of speak to the skills and knowledge that are important to special libraries and being successful in a non-traditional library environment. And I came up with about 6 or 7 of them on the slides. The first one is strong communication skills. When you are a corporate librarian, such as myself, you're always living within a user community that does something that you don't do. So in my world, people are usually claims adjusters or they're insurance underwriters. They're not librarians. So what I see as one of the core skills that we have to have in order to be successful is we have to spend a lot of time getting to understand our user community. So we often will proactively reach out and talk to people and do information needs assessments to understand who they are and how they're using information and how we can potentially help them with that. It is very much our responsibility in the library to communicate to them the value that we bring, because oftentimes they sort of look at you like, oh, we don't really understand how we could leverage that. So we spend a lot of time talking to people and then explaining how our particular services may help them in their day-to-day work. So communication skills are really important. The second set of skills is just knowing that information landscape. I do a lot of training internally around research and how to find reliable information to drive better decision making. And one of the things that I stress with both the end users within the organization as well as the people within our group is our area of expertise as librarians is really knowing the information within a particular sector. So when you're in a special library, and my two primary special library jobs have been in newsrooms and now in an insurance company, you have to spend a lot of time understanding what the information sources are. And I always refer to it as the information landscape for that particular area, because you are to be the expert on how do you navigate. How do you know what's out there? How do you know what's not out there so you can more effectively answer questions? And then, most importantly, with the sources of information that are being utilized within the organization, when you're talking to your end users, your customers internally, you want to understand why they value particular pieces of information, because that is the one thing that I have found that sort of gives us a superpower internally is we're really the only group that's highly focused on how users are using information. IT has a much larger footprint than we do in the information center. But that is the one little piece that IT is not very well focused on is how people are using information, how they want to receive information, and what is the information that they find most useful. The third one is understand the key drivers within your industry. When you're working in a special library, it's really important to be very attuned to the major trends, the lingo, the information that is very specific to your particular niche. When I came into the insurance world, I'd never worked in an insurance organization. When I was in grad school, I was actually in a geophysics library. I was a history major, so geophysics was like another world for me. So there's a lot of expectation of putting that time in to really understand the industry. And if you do that, it also helps really inform and drive better services that you can offer. The other thing is just understanding the key drivers within your organization. So whether it's a law firm or a company or a nonprofit where you are working or the zoo, you want to understand what the key goals and objectives of the organization are because the special library always needs to be driving towards those same goals and objectives, or you have to be able to tie your services to those goals and objectives. Then continually develop your data and technical skills. I wouldn't say that you have to be like a massive programmer to be successful in a corporate library environment. I would say being extremely fluent in technology is a huge value add. I can't tell you the number of times over the last almost 20 years that I've worked in the insurance company where I work now, where I actually am the translator between the people in the technical roles and the people in the business. So being very fluent in technology is important. Those data skills, super important. Everything, as you guys know, is extremely data driven now. If you can do impressive things with things like Tableau and data visualizations, it just helps you drive results in a way that your end users are accustomed to seeing. So hugely important to stay on top of this. I'll also say with the evolution of things like Gen AI, it really represents an opportunity for you if you make sure that your skill sets around Gen AI are really, really strong, because most people within the corporate world, they are not strong. And it's a huge opportunity for us in our team right now to have a real leadership role within the organization, trying to get people up to speed on what AI is and how you can use it. And then lastly, I would say one of the core skills that you need to always develop as a special librarian is really forging strong networks. And those networks can be internal or external. And I will just say on the internal front, what you will find if you work in a non-traditional organization is that collaborating with other groups becomes very, very important. Some of our biggest partners within American Financial Group are the IT people. We're very closely aligned with sourcing and procurement, very closely aligned with the legal department. We leverage the learning and development function that lives within most HR departments as an opportunity to get our message out there. And we're really tied up now with a lot of the data teams trying to find data for them for various projects. So internally, all of those connections, which sort of goes back to the first bullet about the communications and having strong communication skills, those are very much keys to success. And then on the external side, huge fan of associations, which is why we are all here as big supporters of SLA. We've gotten out of that relationship with SLA over the years, so many great contacts that are provide just a great network to help you answer questions more efficiently within your own organization. And I would also say, finally, that externally, you also want to view your vendor partners at all of those different information services that you may end up licensing as core partners as well, because they can really help you shine internally as well.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
Next, we're going to move on to what your best advertisement is your work product. I've worked for Eastman Smith for 23 years, and one thing that I've noticed is people who stick around are people who tend to give a quality work product. I've got it's kind of a cautionary tale for you. At one point, we hired a marketing consultant to come in and do a webinar on making your increasing your marketing efforts, making your efforts better. And the committee who was organizing this said to the person, we want to see what you're going to be talking about. Send us agenda, your materials. We understand they're going to be rough drafts, but we want to see what you're going to talk about. And so the person hem and haw, but they finally provided the information, and it looked like it was going to be good, but we all noticed one thing. The person didn't spell check the document before sending it to us. I mean, we understand it's a rough draft, but if you're not even going to do the minimum, that really colored their perception of the whole seminar. So providing excellent work product is necessary in this world. Also, thinking about what can I add to my work product? Now, growing up, one of the chores we had to do was help my grandparents' neighbors pick strawberries. It was not my favorite job. I tried to get out of it by squishing the rotten berries on my arms to encourage sunburn, but I actually think that worked in reverse and it might have been a sunscreen. But at any rate, we had to pick the berries and then we had to sell them. People would come every year and they would order berries beforehand, or they would come up and say, hey, we see the sign, we want berries. And what my grandparents would do is say, oh, you want six quarts, here you are. But they weren't full, or maybe there's a lot of white tips. Here's an extra half quart. We're just going to sprinkle those over the quart, over those remaining quarts. And people appreciated that. They appreciated getting what they perceived as extra value for their money. And for some reason, that has stuck with me, that providing extra to your work whenever possible is advantageous both for you and for the recipient. If you have someone saying, hey, I need a copy of the statute, here's a statute. Oh, by the way, I double checked. There's some legislation out there that might make changes to the statute. Thought you should know about it. Or, oh, I hear that you're going to be you need information on this and it's going to be for a seminar. So would you like me to provide the information for you in a PowerPoint slide versus sending you an email and then you having to create that product? Also with value add is, for some strange reason, it doesn't matter how often people interact with librarians. They just think we read, wear comfortable shoes, and shush people. I don't think I have ever shushed a person in my life. I've told people to shut up before, but I have not shushed them. So helping them with understanding your skills and that perception is also key, which Jen had mentioned before. Something that I have done on more than one occasion is saying, I'm not really sure where to go with this information, but I've got a contact at one of my associations. Is it okay if I reach out to them and ask, very generally, because, I work for a law firm. Most of our information is confidential. I certainly don't want to give anything away. Don't want to have to fill out the forms or the paperwork or do any of that. So that is just something else that they see as a value add that I'm not afraid to walk up and say, hey, I heard you're working on this project and I know something about that, or I have this skill that might help you out. That gives them a better understanding of what I can do. It makes them feel better that they've got somebody qualified who is in their corner, who is going to help them out. And it's really probably one of my best advertisements is to turn in quality work product and going beyond what's expected. So next up, we have Lisa.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Floralisa Lopez, better known as Lisa. I am the project supervisor at Skadden Arps, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about the technical services department. I have been at Skadden now 13 years. And I basically have always been within a technical services library. So, technical services librarians, our main job and focus is to make sure library materials is available and accessible to the patrons. You will find different functions within the technical services library, and in some cases may have a team of people that perform each type of function, or you may have one person, a solo librarian, who can somehow do it all, but it can be potentially a lot of work. So within the technical services department, we can find acquisitions. What does that mean? Someone focuses their time on ordering materials and purchasing, as well as receiving that material and making sure it goes to the proper people within a department to be able to process it. Cataloging. We all know pretty much what a catalog is, but a catalog, super important because it basically stores all of our information, print and in many cases, ebooks. Within my institution, our head cataloger tries to catalog all those ebooks, and sometimes she's like, "Oh, we got 10,000 records." I'm like, "Oh my God!" So the numbers could be almost mind blowing. So within the catalog, you can also think of the integrated library system, which could be a twofold. It could be the staff mode, which can have different functionalities, or it can be the OPAC, or online public access system. And within this, each institution, an ILS can be different to accommodate the type of collection that is there. And our OPAC, if it's attractive, it can also attract in my case, the attorneys or this staff within the firm to say, hey, I think the library might have this material. So being able to have maybe an insight how to design something or looking for ideas could be very helpful. Tied with cataloging is the classification. This is what I love about cataloging because I also assist doing that functionality is coming up with the call numbers. So each industry, each institution can be slightly different on whatever system they decide, but a standardized system that could be like a Dewey Decimal System, or in our case, we use the Library of Congress, so we can organize our collection. Preservation can also be very different within each institution. Within Skadden, I kind of do a little bit of everything. So I have fixed books or done, but I'm definitely not a specialist in preservation. But someone who preserves material could handle very unique collection very differently. The electronic resources management component today could be maybe what we see primarily within the technical services library. We do a lot of managing databases, monitoring usage, a lot of troubleshooting. And this is where I agree with Jen. Having an understanding of technology is super important, especially when we're helping other people figure out issues. So in some cases, we're figuring these issues out with them because it's like, I have no idea how to deal with this. Let's do it together. And uh, within Skadden, we have a tracking system where our requests come in. Within our system, we have divided it between different departments. And within a month, we can receive in technical services anywhere between maybe 200 to 300 requests coming from attorneys as well as staff. And that could be a variety of between any of these that I've mentioned here to also ordering subscriptions. We also have an internal system where we have a list of all the different vendors we deal with, so we can answer questions when they come to us. So we manage around 800 different databases. It can be anywhere from one user license to a single sign-on with like Westlaw that could be for the entire firm. Just to give you kind of an idea of what that could mean, last year we processed almost $30 million in payments to over 200 vendors. So our department within technical services may seem, oh, they don't really do much, or it's kind of boring. But truly, every day is different. We do all types of different tasks, and we also handle financially a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot goes through our department. So it's the backbone of the library, I like to say. Um, yeah, so that's my piece on technical services.
Thanks, Lisa. And Jamie, you're going to talk about being a shameless self-promoter. We can't hear you.
Maybe in
Very,
the
very low.
audio setting, you can put up I'm not sure.
Okay. Can we hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. For whatever reason, because I have to be logged into VPN, our network does not like Zoom. So we are Microsoft Teams at my company. So I struggle every time there's a Zoom invite. Okay. So Jamie Hollinger here. I am also a corporate librarian, so I co-sign everything that Jen said in the first slide. It all resonated very deeply with me. I will say it seems like the one difference between my corporate experience and hers is that I am also a solo librarian. So I am truly all by myself. My corporation is an orthopedic medical device company. So we are really into all of the orthopedic implants. So I have to learn a lot of different med device language. So I do a lot of searches relating around knee arthroplasty, hip arthroplasty, shoulder, everything. So my company is about 20,000 employees across the globe. So just thinking solo librarian for all of that. It is a lot. I came from the public library world, so I truly went from doing toddler time to working with biomechanical engineers. So it was quite the transition, but it's been fantastic. I'm approaching 7 years with my company. The company is Zimmer Biomet. I'm based in Indiana, but I work remotely entirely. So it's pretty nice. And one of the things that was abundantly clear to me when I started with my position, I took over from somebody who had been in the position for 15 years. not very well liked, unfortunately. So that was that was a struggle to identify with, which means if somebody was not liked, that means nobody wanted to go to them, which means nobody knew that we had a librarian to begin with. So I had a really big hill to climb to be able to um, not just advertise myself, but just even general library resources. Like we had all of these things that we were repeatedly paying for. Most people outside of the headquarters location in Indiana were even aware that there was a library. So there was a lot of waste. So it was a really big undertaking. And so that's where shameless self-promoter comes in. So I am an introvert by nature. I also have a chronic anxiety issue, so I had a lot of time that I had to come over my own self to be able to get to a point where I feel very comfortable approaching anybody at any time. Thankfully, it is all digital, which is nice too. But I really put myself out there, and I really had to think about how do I market a library to a global company by myself. So that was a very big undertaking, and I did a lot of different things, but I'm going to focus on a few things. Um, Invite yourself to everything. We have I mean, again, we have thousands and thousands of, employees. They're all very different in what they do. They're engineers, they're marketing, they're legal, research and development. I live under the research umbrella. My boss is a biomechanical engineer. So I really do mean by myself, I am the only library thing in the company. So thankfully, he gives me the luxury of really deciding how I want to do my job, which I will admit that is rare. It is highly appreciated when you have it. So I practice embedded librarianship. I'm going to kind of jump to the last bullet point there. I have to sell, just as Julie said, you have to sell your worth. What can I bring to the team? What can I bring to the project? How can I help you understand Gen AI, which is very much a big thing in the last few years? I had to teach myself all of that, but I'm already pulling my weight and being able to assist our clinical affairs team, which does thousands of research literature searches on their own daily for what is required as part of selling our product across the globe. We have to do a lot of different literature searches to see what else is coming up in association with a certain product or anything to provide to auditors. So I'm helping them onboard a tool that's going to help them do that using AI. So not just from bringing, a platform, new technology to their workflow, but I'm also incorporating how can I do that without violating copyright law? So, there's a lot of different aspects that come into something like that. And so right there, I'm already transforming what they're doing. So the other aspect too, and Jen covered this as well, is you really do need to identify who you can align with. And so I really worked hard to identify who my super.
Jamie, you're muted.
Okay, there's the sound. Okay, so I identify my super users, and they helped me promote myself. Like they helped in, it was truly a grassroots movement. I even took advantage of being able to get the ear of our CEO. That was one benefit of the pandemic and lockdown. They were doing a lot of really interesting things to kind of, incorporate themselves into our company to kind of, keep up that momentum of like, we're working hard through all of this craziness. So I told him about something that I was working on that was actually going to really help and transform the way that people were accessing the literature in our company. And then he decided to talk about it in one of the new COVID, CEO talks that he was doing. And so he plugged me and talked about me. And that was really fantastic. But I'm also going to get to why the picture is there that I'm using. Even though the CEO talked about me, promoted something that I was bringing to the company, hardly anybody came to me from that plug, which was really disappointing. However, I did a meet the team member presentation that went onto our company, website, internal company website, and I used that picture. I got so much traction from my cat Natalie being included in promoting myself and the work that I was doing. I was launching a new platform that was going to be really, and it has been, it's been a huge asset to the library now. But I got more interest and comments and, hey, what else can you do from that picture being posted on our company internal website? So you just have to be really creative in how you promote yourself. And so that's one thing that I did. And then the other thing that I will end with, being a public librarian for so long, I actually really miss doing book discussions. So I joined my women's group for our employee resource groups, which is a great, aspect of corporate life. DEI. And thankfully my company is committed to that. So I'm able to continue to lead a book club within my women's group at my corporation. We're going into our third year of doing this, and I have 60 people registered for my next book club that's at the end of March. So I've gotten a lot of really great traction from that as well. And it's actually got like VPs in our company to say, hey, would you be interested in leading my team book discussion that I want to have over this, professional development group? So I'm now starting to do that as well. So there's little ways that you can plug yourself in there, and it can also be traditionally public libraries, skill sets, but it works in a corporate environment because people really have been benefiting from, having really great discussions around a lot of different topics because I've offered that as a way of promoting myself and getting, meshed in with people. So you just got to get out there and introvert with anxiety. I still do it. It's hard work, but it really does pay off. And so yeah, that's my life in corporate world.
Thanks, Jamie. Last and certainly not least, we have Jill to talk about soft skills.
Got the unmute going. Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there as we get to the end. That puts the pressure on me. I don't know what's worse, being the last in the evening or teaching a course on SEC research on a Friday afternoon when it's beautiful outside and I'm stuck in some dark windowless room. So anyway, great to virtually meet you. I'm Jill Strand. I'm the Director of Research and Knowledge Services at Fish & Richardson. We're an intellectual property law firm. Like many of my esteemed peers here, I've been doing this for quite some time. I started out in publishing and corporate writing and journalism, and then somewhere in there went to grad school, got a library degree. My first job was at Target Corporation as a solo librarian for their property development division. And then I ended up at a law firm thinking I would just learn some more research skills. And 3 law firms, and 15 years later, I'm still doing this gig. So, which means it's really interesting and it keeps things kind of fascinating. I'm going to talk about soft skills. I think my co-presenters have done an amazing job. And you're seeing a lot of overlap, right, in some of what we're saying. But, Jen did a great job of talking about communication, and I just will put an extra emphasis on that. I feel like one of the best things about journalism school was teaching me how to write, how not to bury the lead, who, when, why, what, where, how. And I work with attorneys who bill by the hour, so you really have to be concise. I had one partner say to me, when you're making some suggestion or business case, tell me what it is, what your recommendation is, because you obviously have some knowledge in this area, why it's important, when you need me to get back to you. And he kind of had this really short framework, and I've been using it ever since. But I would say, particularly in the day, it's funny, you guys will get a kick out of this. I was having a meeting with one of my staff, and we were having this really healthy debate about the Oxford comma, which I hate. I'll just go on record as saying that. And but it's sort of telling because written communication is so critical to what we do. I think verbal as well. But I think when most of what we're doing is, even before the pandemic, was email. Sometimes it was in person. But we're writing, we're responding to requests, we're delivering information, and we have to make it easily digestible and easily and quickly actionable. And I would say half the time when I was a researcher, I would spend as much time packaging what I was sharing as preparing it. That was part of it. So I think whether you're working with busy attorneys, busy engineers, busy whomever, that's the courtesy that you do for them. Your job is to give them a deliverable that they can act on quickly, and just go from there. A lot of my peers here have talked about collaboration, working with other departments. We in particular, and I've done this in every organization I've worked in, is really have a focus on collaborating with our peers in other administrative departments, whether it's marketing, finance. We serve the whole firm. We're not just serving the attorneys. I'm part of IT. I report to the CIO. That's a really great place for us to be because so much of what we do does touch on technology. But being able to partner with, say, our marketing department on pitch and proposal requests and research they need for that. Working with our legal technology services team, it's like, hey, let's talk about data strategy. We can help you find APIs for data for firm systems and manage this. So we're always kind of doing that outreach. And then also, and I know Jamie kind of touched on this, doing outreach to our heaviest users, but also people who don't use us. A few years back, we started an outreach program to new associates, like, okay, you had orientation a few months back. Well, how's it going? Here's a profile of your request history and the resources you're using. We've got some suggestions, but what are your pain points? I think those things are all really critical to being able to do your job very well. And a lot of times I've been a solo, I've been in small firms, I've been in large firms. Sometimes it seems like it's too much, like I don't have time for it. And believe me, I get that. But scale it down to what's doable for you because you'll gain so much more and keep your resources and your services relevant to the organization. Time management, I mean, come on, common sense. I love any, there's no time management course I'm not happy to kind of take, even if some of it seems like something I've heard before. There's tons of stuff like this out there. Skill Path is kind of a cool company that has actually lots of courses, both live, but also self-driven on everything from communication to management to time management. My team's gone through a Getting Things Done program to kind of help them juggle all, we have a lot of stuff we do. We're doing research, we're managing resources, technical services, training. I mean, it's a lot, whether you're a solo or you're in a larger organization working with the team. So I feel like it never hurts to find what works for you and kind of try some things and stick with that. Asking questions, we kind of joke when we do training, the only dumb question is the one you did not ask us. When I used to do training for new associates, I would just say, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm here to make you look good. You don't have to impress me. Just ask us anything. That's what we're here for. So I think when you're not under, whether you're getting a request and it's not really clear, clarify it, before you get too far down that rabbit hole and spin your wheels in a direction that's not quite right. If you're not sure and you don't understand something, if somebody uses some lingo or jargon, ask them to define that. By the same token, we want to take the library jargon, out of what we're doing when we're communicating to end users too. So we kind of, I joke a lot of my job is making things idiot proof. It's not because I think other people are idiots. It's because I'm the idiot who's trying to figure things out and I'm moving quick and I just can't afford to get bogged down too much. So that's something I'm always kind of empowering, encouraging my staff to do. I do see that there's a question there and I will get to that. So thanks, Lisa. I want to get through my bullets and then that could be a good segue into other questions people might have. Starting with solutions, I manage a team of 9 awesome research, document delivery, and systems people. They're great. If there are problems, I definitely want to know. But come to me with some ideas too, right? And I think that that's what our end users, our patrons, clients, whatever you like to call them, are looking for as well. If they're asking for something and you can't get it on their timeline, say, well, I can't, this part might take more time, but I can get you this in the interim. It's looking for the art of the possible. And that's all a part of managing expectations, which I probably should have listed there. I could have put that many different ways. But that's a good segue. And I didn't really know how to phrase that. So that's why I put, how can I make X easier for Y? And that is really thinking about, if this person is asking me for something or this person needs this, how do I make it easier for them? How do I make things easier for my boss? I mean, that I sometimes feel like I know my boss is very busy. I often need information from him, or maybe I need information from an attorney or somebody in leadership. How do I make it easy for them to get back to me? And some of this is just what I've learned from feedback over the years, but also what I would like, right? I kind of joke that when I retire, there is going to be this blazing LinkedIn post I'm going to do about how vendors should address emails when they're cold call emailing. And so I've got a lot of opinions about that. So I kind of take those experiences and try and think about, okay, this is the information I need. This is the question I'm trying to answer. This is the thing that I need to move forward on this project. How do I make it easier for somebody to partner with me or get back to me or work with me on that? Whether you're going up to your boss or down to your staff, those kinds of things. No surprises. That one, actually, one of my very first bosses said that when I started working for him, I was a sales rep at Simon & Schuster, and many, many decades ago. And he said, your job is to make me look good. My job is to protect you from headquarters, because I was in the field. And, honestly, that worked great. And I don't say that to my staff, but one thing I have learned is if something is going slightly sideways or something is like, well, I'm not sure, I tell my boss about it, even if I think I've got it handled. I have had some instances where, maybe I could have told my upper, and maybe it's not your boss, maybe it's somebody else who will be impacted by that decision in another department. But there's been some instances where something's been going on with my team and they thought they were kind of anxious and they wanted to like solve it. But in trying to solve it and not letting me know, they missed some things I could have done to help and make it easier so they didn't have to stress it so much. So I always think it's better you never want your boss or somebody else you're partnering with at the firm to get blindsided. And it may not even be that big a deal, but think about, well, what would I want to know? What would be most helpful for me if this was me and I was in their position? So, oh, Jamie, the question was for Jamie. Okay. So engineers are great. I worked with engineers at Target. They were awesome. And in an intellectual property law firm, I'm working with not just attorneys, but people who spent their early parts of their careers getting PhDs in everything from computer engineering to biosimilars and life sciences. My husband jokes that IP attorneys are kind of unusual because they've sort of come full circle, like they're crazy overeducated and now they're humble again. So, and they're really cool and nerdy and fun to geek out with. So anyway, that's my kind of quick take on soft skills. And with that, I think we've got plenty of time for questions. So Jamie, do you want to answer the biochemical engineer question?
Before we jump into questions,
Oh, sorry.
had one more slide just to give you a little bit of information on SLA. We've all touched on it, I think, when we were talking. Basically, we're a nonprofit organization for librarians and info pros, focusing things on learning, networking, community building. And if you want to know what that is, this seminar is a perfect example of the kinds of things that SLA does. It's comprised of a great bunch of folks, and as student members, you get full participation. There are no bars. A lot of associations say if you're a student, you can only do X, Y, or Z. That is not how we do it in SLA. And in fact, Erin is going to be presenting at the annual conference, and she obviously is still a student. Is there anything that my colleagues would like to add about SLA? Jill.
I will. Yeah. I apologize. I should have jumped on this early in my thing, but so I've been a member of SLA since I was a student in library school back in the early aughts. I can credit SLA with my first helping me to find my first library job out of grad school because I was doing information. I was going to meetings and doing informational interviews with people and members. But really, truly, one of the coolest things about SLA is its diversity in terms of roles and types of organizations. I've obviously hopped from corporate to legal. they're like a one-stop shop for info pros and just about every type of role and every type of organization, which I think is really great. But it is a very welcoming, supportive, nurturing, lots of great education. Like many associations, they've kind of had their struggles, but I think that they're really going very strong. They had an awesome kick butt conference last year, and I'm looking forward to another great one this year. This is going to be at the University of Pittsburgh campus. I'm excited about that. Full disclosure, I'm a past president of SLA, so I'm going to shell for them till I'm dead, but they're worth it. So
Go ahead, Lisa.
I want to second everything that Jill said, but I also want to say SLA can also provide a way for you to build on your skills. Within SLA in the New York community, I have been able to put programs together. Something that at my job I don't do day to day, but then that that planning, those skills I've gained work to my benefit with my job. Um, I'm now president of the community, which also helped with my promotion last year. So being part of SLA has a lot of great benefits, and I've met a lot of amazing people, and you know, being part of this panel is a testament to that as well.
Thanks. Would anyone else like to chime in? I just have to say one of the skills that I learned early on, because like Jill, I joined when I was in grad school, that the World Wide Web had just come out, and I was learning how to program on how to create a web page, and I the business and finance division wanted to put together a website and were looking for suggestions, and I said, oh, how about one on career information? And they said, great, you write it. I'm like, okay. So I wrote it, I coded it, sent it off, and they said, oh, this is great, but you forgot to put the page breaks in for the various parts. So it was all one great big long text document that nobody could see. So I forever now always remember to put in my returns whenever I'm doing whenever I'm doing a page. But that gave me a benefit of learning how to do something, trying it out, and finding out there was a mistake, but I did not necessarily have any pushback on my careers, like it wasn't my boss finding out that I made a mistake. So I echo the nurturing part that Jill mentioned. So one of the couple of things I want to mention is there is an upcoming webinar, if you didn't notice that, on Connect, if you're a member, on the economic census. And then, of course, we also mentioned there's the annual conference. We did send a PDF of the slides to the organizers. So we also have additional resources if you're looking for more information. And with that, oh, interesting. Oh, I hit the button. Aha. Alrighty. Sorry, hit the wrong button. If you have any questions, we're open for questions now, and our contact information is also at the end of the slides. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Julie, it looks like we've got a question. I love about music librarianship, that there's an interest in that. And the question is, would having a musical background help, and what additional training is required or recommended? I can't speak to music librarianship specifically, if anybody here can or tangentially. But I would say that I think you can learn about anything and apply the skills you're learning in grad school. So if you're interested in it, if you're passionate about it, when I moved from a corporate environment to the legal environment, I did not have any legal research experience at all. I had business research experience, and they were fine with that. They said, we'll teach you the legal part. I don't look to hire JDs for, I think academia kind of sometimes wants certain levels of degrees, but I also think there's been some discussion, at least in the profession, about some of that stuff can be taught. I mean, if somebody has it, that's great. But it is some of those kind of more practical general skills and soft skills that are harder to teach. And so, if you see something that looks good and you're not sure you're a great fit, or you're like, well, I don't have this, I don't have this, you never know. One of my current systems analysts had spent the last 10 years in public libraries. She had been in a law firm as a paralegal, like years before. Her resume kind of fell to the bottom of the pile as I called and talked to all these people who are more experienced, and none of them was quite the right fit. And so I was like kind of getting desperate, had been looking and looking, pulled her resume out and thought, I don't know, this looks interesting. I'm just going to get on the phone with her. Hired her. She's great. Love her. So you never know.
Thanks, Jill. The first question, it's for Jamie. Does having a biochemical engineer for a boss lead to difficulties? Does he or she make a genuine effort to understand your challenges and value?
Okay, trying to get myself back. Okay,
Uh, we're having problems hearing you. You're can't hear you now. Isn't technology wonderful? Nope, still can't hear you. Just to let everybody know, a lot of us probably learned how to use computers back when crashing daily was a normal occurrence.
Do we want to skip to the question for Jen Ever to give Jamie some time to
Let's
figure
see.
out
Yeah.
her-
You mentioned Tableau and Gen AI. Are there other data application skills that, if librarians know them, would benefit the workplace in a tech-intensive world? Librarians aren't data scientists, so what would their niche be when it comes to working with data?
Yep. I completely agree that we're not data scientists. I think on sort of the Tableau data visualization side, there's definitely a niche that works well for librarians there, like not super like SPSS and statisticals and linear progressions and all that stuff. You don't have to get into that to be really valuable to the organization. I think the niche that we have found, and I think this is not a niche that's going away anytime soon, is a role that I would sort of refer to as a data scout. More and more, everybody is looking for data sources, so that the data scientists can create their models or analyze large data sets. They just don't know where to get the data. So we spend a lot of time sourcing data. So we'll have people contact us saying, hey, we're working on a model. We need a flood score. But this is for our office in Canada, so it needs to be a flood score in Canada. So I think I had mentioned, yeah, I mentioned the whole importance of like knowing your information landscape. I think that data scout role is huge across corporate America, because most people don't have a really good sense of where to find data, and we do. And there are even little niche companies popping up all over the place that people will subscribe to where they're constantly keying in, like, we need a flood score in Canada. And then these companies will kick out like the 3 or 4 vendors who operate in that space. But that's a really important role to play in the data world as well, and plays exactly to the skill set that we're all trained with.
Yeah. And I'd like to add to that in my role, I do a lot of research and that's going more into data. So I do a bit of data analysis, but I think one of the skills that we bring is we not only say, oh, hey, here's the average, we can also put that in context with other things because a number is just a number. I always like to pick where it says, oh, 4 out of 5 people choose this. Well, who are these 4 people and why did they choose it and why didn't this 5th person choose it and start picking apart the data. And that's another skill set we have is where we can look and question what's going on and look kind of behind the scenes. Jamie, do we have you back? Is your voice back? Can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Jamie, maybe you could
Let's.
put something in the
Oh, we
chat.
can
Maybe
hear
you
you.
can type it in the
Oh, there
chat.
she is. Good.
Okay, we can hear you now. No, we can't hear you. It went away. Do you want to put your answer in the chat? Since the gremlin seems to be blocking your um sorry, the hamster
Audio.
just fell asleep. Let's see. What other questions do we have here?
I tried to answer one about the conference in the chat, whether there would be virtual programming. There might be some component they make available for a certain time after the conference. I'm pretty sure they did that last year, but there's always virtual programming going on throughout the year. Communities are often hosting webinars, vendor showcases, all kinds of great things. So if you're a member and you're on, getting in SLA Connect, getting kind of news about stuff, you will hear about that.
Yep. Yep. It's a very good place to go is SLA Connect. The next questions for me, it's advocating for work is such a great point. Can you think of an instance where you had to advocate for your work in the opposite sense, setting boundaries for what is your role? Well, I can tell you, I did try that saying, well, that's out of my job description. And someone says, your job is what I tell you it is. So you can't really set boundaries in that sense, but it's more set expectations. Well, yes, I can get this for you, but not the way you're looking at it, or I can't get this for you now, like Jill was saying, but I can get you this so far. So it's not necessarily saying I will do this and I won't do that. It's a matter of saying, well, this is what I can do. About the only thing that I will tell them is I am not a JD. I cannot interpret law. I don't even like to flirt with that law about practicing without a license because I'm too pretty to go to jail. But that's really the only limitation that I set. Let's see. Any other questions here?
While
We
you're
can
scanning,
also think
oh, go
about,
ahead, Lisa.
we can also think of a role as you providing a service to our patrons. So at the end of the day, whatever is needed, we're going to try to do. If that also means, hey, you can contact so and so that can help you with whatever it is that they're asking, that's also providing a service.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Lisa.
I was going to share with regards to generative AI, that is definitely kind of like being data stewards or data scouts is an opportunity for us. I mean, generative AI, one thing we do really well is evaluate resources, right? We look under the hood, we know the questions, we know the use cases, we know the pain points, we know what the tools are, we have relationships with a lot of the vendors, but we know how to kind of look behind the scenes at other things too. So our firm, my team is directly involved in the firm's AI tools committee, making sure that when they're not acting like the dog and up and going squirrel, 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 that they are actually starting with the problems they're trying to solve and then finding tools that might help and then evaluating them based on criteria. We know that process inside and out. So I think anything you can do, you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to go out and get a certificate unless you decide that's kind of where you want to focus, but not to knock additional education. But just being aware and being versed in what these things are and how they could impact, you can definitely find some niches out there to distinguish yourself.
If we've got time, we have one more question that I've seen in the chat. It's someone says they're in the MLS program and wanted to ask if you also did the MLS program and how much of it do you use at your job versus how much you actually learned while on the job. I always worry about being the newbie and not knowing enough. I've worked in libraries before I started my degree. I find that I use stuff that I learned at my first job. I find I use stuff that I learned in class, and I use stuff that I learn on the job as well as through seminars. So at this point, I'm not sure what I learned where that I apply, but I do know some of the stuff that I did learn in school. I do use. I think probably what is also most helpful is as you're getting a degree, look for opportunities where you can get some experience. And then that kind of hones in or underscores, that's a better word, underscores what you're learning in school. Anybody else want to add to that question?
I think again that, again, not to make a shameless plug for SLA, but I'm gonna make a shameless plug. I got my graduate degree in 2004, so some time ago. A lot of the technology and things I do are kind of a far cry, but the MLIS definitely gave me the basics, the foundation. And from there, everything I needed from there was either through SLA, some other association, or on the job. So whatever organization you're in or whatever your need is, you can find some sort of training or professional development course or webinar or white paper to kind of help fill that, taught. And a lot of it I found out about by talking to my peers and networking. So I think as long as you're kind of always open to learning, you'll find what you need with help from your friends.
And kind of something you said jogged a memory. I worked at a public library as well. And at one point, they had a division between people who had degrees and people who did not have degrees. And one person who didn't have a degree was told, well, you need to buy books on this area. And she was totally panicked because she had no idea how to do it. And we said, well, if you got a degree, you would have a basic knowledge of how to do that. So I think having the degree at least gives you the basic knowledge in basic knowledge to do your job. Let's see. I think that those are all the questions. If I missed any questions, I do apologize. But like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions to any of us, and I'll turn it back over to Shannon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of the presenters. That was wonderful to hear such a wide range of experiences and backgrounds. I would just say before we leave, do you have any parting advice to this group of students as we head into our professional careers? I'll open that up to any of our speakers.
Get used to change. Death, taxes, and change. Those are now the three constants. And I started with when I started, library catalog was something that you have on a card catalog, and now it's on the computer. There was microfilm. Last time I talked to students, none of them had ever seen microfilm. I started with World Wide Web. We now have Gen AI. I'm looking forward to meeting our robot overlords, and hopefully they remember my prompts were very polite. So I think change is probably something that you'll need to get used to. Other thoughts?
I'd also say if you're considering special libraries when you're looking for work, don't always look for the library keyword because most of the positions are posted as something else, whether it's like research analyst, competitive intelligence, taxonomy development. Focus more on the skill set that you're getting in your graduate program and look creatively for those skill sets because the skill set is extremely valuable. It just may not be in a traditional library environment.
And I would like to add to maybe be open to learning. I think learning something new is going to be constant, and I would even say think outside the box. So when I graduated from school, I was thinking about the arts, and somehow I landed at the law firm. So it was not my plan.
And be open to projects or opportunities within your organization. Look for, I think part of why we got involved with the AI is nobody else really knew where to start and what to do with it. And I'm like, well, we can help evaluate tools. I mean, half the time I feel like I'm barely holding on to the tail of the comet and trying not to get kicked off. And I would not worry about what you don't know because you can learn that, like Lisa was saying. We all kind of get attacked by imposter syndrome. I struggle with it every day, even at this point in my career. You'll figure it out. And if you need help, you know where to go.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I will just read out what Jamie said in the chat here. They said, be flexible and unafraid of change, and do not be afraid to apply, even if you think you are not fully qualified, which I think is all really helpful advice. I know I'm personally in the trenches of internships, so I'm sure a lot of my peers are as well. So thank you. It's wonderful. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with all of us about your experiences. And I hope that you all have a wonderful evening, and we will be sharing the recording later. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Good luck.